I'm Amanda, 31 years old. I've been married to my husband, James, for 2 years. I thought we were getting along just fine. At least, in the beginning. Things changed a year ago. It all started when my husband's father passed away.
Hey, Amanda.
Yeah?
A little while after the funeral, once things had settled down, James spoke to me, looking a bit awkward.
My dad passed away, right?
Yeah.
My mom seems really lonely.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking, what if we moved in with her?
What?
The idea of living with her had never come up before. I was confused, but James didn't back down. He insisted it was sad for his mom to be alone. I knew they had a good relationship, and I had noticed his mom calling him more often, seeming worried after the funeral.
That house is way too big for her alone, right? We've been talking about buying a house anyway. Wouldn't it be better to live in a house rather than an apartment? It'd save us money compared to buying new.
I guess so.
My mom really likes you, you know? It'll be fun living together.
James said that, but I knew his mom didn't like me. She hadn't done anything outright or said anything nasty, but I could just feel it. I had told James a while ago that I didn't want to live with her, and he had agreed.
Since you're working, wouldn't it help if my mom pitched in with the housework?
That would be solved if you helped out more, you know? You work, but so do I.
This isn't the time to argue about that. Don't you feel sorry for my mom, losing my dad so early?
I couldn't say no. After we moved in with his mom, Mary, things between James and me changed. I work from home as a web designer, but Mary didn't approve of it.
What are you doing, working little jobs like that?
Huh?
You're not making any real money doing something that looks like a hobby.
Well, but
I just started my own business last year. I hadn't officially opened my own office yet, but I planned to when we eventually bought our own house. We had talked about adding a small space for my office once we bought the house, but until then, I was working from home. Fortunately, my previous company was sending me clients, and I had enough work to keep me busy.
Forget that little hobby. Focus on supporting my son. He's the breadwinner of the family.
Mary wouldn't even listen to me. She dismissed my work as nothing more than a pastime. Every chance she got, she'd say things like,
Why are you so hung up on that hobby? Must be nice not having to do any housework.
or,
This wouldn't happen if James wasn't so nice.
maybe in her day, things were different. She believed that husbands worked outside, and wives should support them from home. She kept saying James was the breadwinner and that I was lucky to be supported by him, so I should take care of him.
but I have my own job, too.
So what? Is your work more important than your family?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm working just as much as James is. I also do the housework. Maybe not as well as you, but I was managing just fine before we moved in.
Huh? Oh, I'm sure my son was just putting up with it. He's too nice.
What?
You call that work? Doing the housework half-heartedly too?
She gave me a disdainful look, like she was laughing at me. Sure, I might not be the most skilled person, but I thought I was handling cleaning, laundry, and cooking just fine. Though, compared to Mary, who had been a housewife all her life, I didn't measure up. She would nitpick everything I did and criticize my housekeeping, but she never actually helped. Before we moved in, James had said that his mom would help out with the chores, but instead, my burden kept getting bigger.
James makes $100,000 a year. What's the point of you doing this little work?
$100,000?
She bragged about James's salary. She was off by a digit, though. I tried to correct her, but she cut me off.
You're just getting in the way.
Mary was completely mistaken, and she wouldn't listen to anything I said. No matter how many times I tried to explain, she couldn't get that $100,000 figure out of her head. To make things worse, she was even boasting about it to the neighbors.
Hey, your mom's been saying this.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Really?
James didn't care about my complaints.
Your mom thinks you make $100,000 a year. And you're okay with that?
Does it really matter? It's not hurting anything.
What?
I'm tired. Can we drop it?
He sighed in frustration. He didn't used to be like this. At first, he would step in between us, but he seemed to enjoy the attention from his mom and took her side more and more those days.
You should try to understand how my mom feels.
He always said that, but never listened to me anymore.
I'm the one doing the housework, you know? It's so much more work with 3 people. Wasn't your mom supposed to help?
She's got bad knees now. Do you want her to push herself?
No, but if both you and your mom could just help a little, it'd make a big difference.
Not this again.
You don't listen no matter how many times I bring it up. My work is getting busier, too. Sometimes, I just can't keep up with everything.
I tried to explain as best I could.
And now you're using work as an excuse. Are you doing this just to get back at me?
He muttered that and walked out of the room. He didn't used to be like this. I kept thinking that over and over. James used to fully support me when I decided to go independent and work hard. He used to share the housework with me. However, things had changed so much. He doesn't do anything for me at all. Ever since we moved here, every time I bring up work, he gets irritated and yells at me, accusing me of being passive-aggressive. I know it's because of his mom's influence, but I can't believe his attitude changed so easily. It's made me lose the desire to argue anymore.
Oh, where are you going?
I've got a meeting. I'll be back in time to make dinner.
A meeting? What kind of meeting?
I'm meeting with a real estate agent to look at office space.
I realized I couldn't keep working from home in this environment anymore, so I decided to rent an office. While I do have space to work at home, the emotional strain is too much. Every time I try to work, Mary glares at me and makes comments, and I've come to understand that James won't take my side. I figured it'd be better for me to rent a space where I could work without feeling guilty.
What?
Just as I was about to head out, Mary shouted and hurried over to stop me. She grabbed my arm with more strength than I thought she had, and I winced in pain, but she didn't care.
Wait. Mary.
What do you think you're doing? Does James know about this?
No, but
I can't believe you. Acting on your own like this.
I just haven't had the chance to talk to him yet. I wasn't trying to hide it.
This is outrageous. How dare you spend money so freely? I won't allow it.
What?
Don't leave the house today. We'll talk to James when he gets home.
Her shrill voice drowned out any chance I had to reason with her. I ended up canceling my meeting with the realtor.
James, you're late.
What's going on? Why are you so worked up?
Just listen to me.
As I was working in the other room, I overheard Mary talking to James after he came home from work. She was probably telling him I was planning to spend a bunch of money behind his back. I could hear her voice rising, almost in tears, as she tried to get James on her side. After a while,
Can we talk?
James opened the door cautiously. Behind him was Mary, her face twisted with anger, practically saying she was crying out of sheer frustration. I sighed deeply and reluctantly stopped what I was doing.
What is it?
My mom told me.
I won't forgive you for wasting James' hard-earned money.
Mary cut in, her voice shaking with emotion.
That's what she's saying, but
This whole misunderstanding was getting ridiculous.
Huh? I had a meeting scheduled about renting office space. How is that wasting money?
renting an office? You mean getting a place?
Yes. It's become too difficult to work here, and neither you nor your mother seems to like me working here. I figured it would be better for both sides if I found a separate space.
James shifted uncomfortably, while Mary's eyes widened in disbelief.
Spending all that money out of spite is just crazy. And without even asking permission.
I'm planning to pay for the office with my own money. I'm sorry I didn't mention it sooner, but I don't think it's something you or anyone else should have a say in.
I said it bluntly, rubbing my temples, and James looked a little taken aback. I had never spoken up like this before. I had always held back, never arguing with him or Mary. Nevertheless, I had reached my limit. I was fed up with Mary, who wouldn't listen and kept imposing her narrow-minded views on me, and with James, who only listened to her.
Oh my, how cruel. To call family advice meddling. Unbelievable.
Apparently, her idea of family was having a daughter-in-law who obeyed everything without question. If that was what she expected, I couldn't do it anymore.
Just get divorced already.
Mary finally said what she really wanted.
What?
James looked shocked.
You'll only be miserable if you stay with someone like her. There's someone better for you out there.
But
You should choose someone who can truly support you. After all, you're the breadwinner of the family.
She lectured him as if she were making a case in court.
the breadwinner.
James seemed pleased with the sound of that, his lips curving into a small smile. All I could do was silently watch. He turned back to me with a smug grin.
Let's get divorced. I feel bad, but yeah, my mom's right. I need someone who can support me better.
I see.
Right? You understand, don't you?
He flashed a grin, like he was trying to butter me up. I couldn't believe how easily he could say something that would change both our lives, all because the words breadwinner had gone to his head. Though, I was already over it.
All right.
As soon as I said that, Mary smiled with satisfaction, and James relaxed, as if relieved.
But there's a condition.
A condition?
Once we're divorced, don't ever contact me. No calls, no messages. Nothing.
Fine. That's normal when people divorce, right? I agree.
Good. I'll move out by the end of the week. After that, I'll have my attorney send you the divorce papers and an agreement to keep that promise.
An attorney?
James was a little startled by the mention of an attorney, but I explained.
Yes. It's better for both of us this way, right? If you ever try to contact me, I'll seek damages. That shouldn't be a problem for you since we'll be living separate lives, right?
Mary interrupted, clearly losing her patience.
Why not? If she contacts you, you can demand compensation, right?
True.
All right then, no problem? Also, we'll each keep our own belongings and finances. That's fair, right?
James hesitated for a moment before nodding. I figured he would.
Then I'll make sure that's included in the paperwork as well.
Mary sighed dramatically, but then smiled.
Ah, what a relief.
I smiled.
Thank you for everything.
Mary frowned, clearly displeased, and James looked awkwardly at the ground. In the end, my husband never stood up for me. I found myself thinking that absent-mindedly. After deciding on the divorce, I immediately contacted my parents. When I told them everything that had happened and how I was being pushed into a divorce, my mom teared up and my dad got angry. They insisted I leave that house as soon as possible, and by the early morning of the next day, my dad and brother arrived with a truck to help me move out. Neither James nor Mary expected me to leave so quickly. They looked stunned, but I didn't pay them any attention and quickly gathered my things and left the house. I contacted an attorney I'd known since my previous job, and they handled the paperwork for the divorce and the agreement. Everything was settled smoothly. For the time being, I stayed with my parents. I had planned to rent a place that could serve as both my residence and office, but my parents were against it.
You've just gotten divorced, and who knows what your ex-husband or his mother might do,
My dad said. So I decided to stay with them for a while, and that turned out to be the right choice.
Amanda, I know you're in there.
A few months after the divorce, I heard that voice late at night. There was a loud banging on the front door. I immediately recognized it as James's voice, but my dad told me,
Stay here.
as he went to the door. My mom sat beside me, offering comfort.
What do you want at this hour?
Tom, where's Amanda?
James said loudly to my dad.
I believe you're divorced. What do you want now?
That woman stole my son's money. Send her out now.
I could hear Mary's shrill voice. I never imagined they'd show up together.
Stole?
My dad repeated, clearly confused.
Yes. How else would James' money have disappeared? There's no money left in his account, and we can't live like this. Give it back now.
No money in the account? They couldn't live anymore? I had a feeling something like this might happen, but their absurd claims were dizzying. Knowing that reasoning with them would go nowhere, I reluctantly walked to the front door.
Amanda,
Please leave. You're disturbing the neighbors.
I kept my voice calm, in stark contrast to their shouting.
How dare you act so high and mighty? Give the money back now.
Mary continued to scream.
Give back what money?
You stole my son's money.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I never touched his money. We kept separate finances, and I don't even know his bank account information.
She fell silent, shocked. Though, it was the truth. She clearly hadn't been told anything, and her eyes widened in disbelief.
But then why is there no money? The electricity's been cut off. It doesn't make sense. He's supposed to be making $100,000 a year.
She was still clinging to that mistaken belief? I glanced at James.
Hey. Don't you think it's time you told her the truth?
Huh?
Mary looked at him, confused. James stayed silent, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. I sighed, took out my phone to show my online bank account.
Take a look at this.
I opened my statements and showed them to Mary, who stared wide-eyed. She blushed, and just as she opened her mouth to say something, I cut her off and explained.
I didn't steal anything. Look at the numbers. You'll see large amounts of money coming in regularly, even after the divorce.
I looked at James again.
Tell your mom that it's me who earns $100,000 a year, and that you make only about 20% of that.
What?
what?
You've known for a while that she's had the wrong idea, haven't you? And you never corrected her.
James worked at a company, but he was only a contract employee, not full-time. His job was commission-based, meaning he had no base salary. Some people in his position could make $100,000 a year, but his sales weren't great. He was lucky if he brought home $1,000 a month, making his annual income roughly $20,000. The only reason we lived as comfortably as we did was because of my income. I had paid for all the household expenses, supporting both him and his mother. James kept his entire salary for himself, as spending money. When I suggested that we manage our finances separately, James didn't object, likely because he thought he had more discretionary money than I did. Even though his salary was a fraction of mine, he still believed he had more financial freedom. He never saved, despite the vast income gap, and I knew he was spending recklessly. James lived well beyond his means, and it's no wonder his mom got the wrong impression. She wouldn't listen when I tried to correct her, and James let the misunderstanding continue.
Hey, help me out. You've got money, right?
James desperately pleaded with me.
What are you talking about?
We were married, right? Help me out.
Yeah, you've got plenty of money. So what's the problem? You can even work again. Just remarry my son.
Mary chimed in, shouting. Their sheer selfishness left me speechless.
Why would I?
There was no reason for me to take care of those two again. I had no obligation.
You still love my son, don't you? I'm giving you permission to remarry him.
The arrogance was astounding. It was my father who finally shouted.
Enough of this nonsense. Don't come near my daughter again. How dare you think you can push your selfish demands on her?
Mary flinched but quickly yelled back.
I'm talking to your daughter.
I turned to her and calmly said,
Mary, are you listening?
Yes.
She snapped, her eyes wide.
Then, I'll be filing a claim for damages against your son.
At that moment, I played my trump card. Mary stood there, mouth agape.
What?
I went back to my room to grab a document and placed it in front of them.
See? We agreed, didn't we? If you contacted me, I'd file a claim for damages.
This can't be.
You expect me to help you? Remarry? Don't make me laugh.
James was enraged, reached out toward me.
You.
Just as my father moved to stop him, we all heard police sirens in the distance. It was probably a concerned neighbor who called them, sensing that things had gotten out of hand. Feeling relieved, I finally let go of the tension in my body, and my father held me up. In the end, James and Mary were taken away by the police. It would have ended with just a warning, but my ex-husband, in his fury, punched the officer who was trying to restrain him. Though he was released shortly after, I still went through with filing a claim for damages through my attorney. I knew they wouldn't be able to pay, but it served as a warning that this is what would happen if they came near me again. After things finally settled down, I rented an office and started living on my own. My work is going well, and I'm busier than I've ever been when I was with them. I'm surrounded by supportive people, and my life feels more fulfilling than ever. In my personal life, I also started dating a man I met through work. He understands that I'm divorced and still wants to be with me. He's a busy guy who values his work, but we motivate and support each other, making life fun. Being with someone who respects you is truly the best thing. Now, time to get to work. I opened my laptop on the desk and got started.